Kwame Nkrumah was born in a small town in Ghana, but from the start, he felt something bigger calling his name. As a boy, he watched his people live under colonial rule. He saw fear in their eyes, rules they didn't choose, and a land that didn't feel like it belonged to its own children. Every night, he sat outside under the stars, listening to elders whisper about freedom. The word freedom stayed in his heart like a drumbeat. When Kwame grew older, he went to school far from home. He read books about leaders who changed their nations, and he dreamed of doing the same. But he didn't want power for himself. He wanted dignity, hope, and a future where every Ghanaian could stand tall. The world outside Ghana was rough. Racism, unfair laws, and deep poverty followed African people everywhere. Kwame felt their pain as if it were his own. He joined student groups, spoke in meetings, and marched in protest. People saw something special in him, a fire that refused to die. One night, while walking alone, he whispered, "Africa must be free." The wind carried his words away, but his heart held them tight. From that moment, Kwame Nkrumah made a silent promise. He would return home and fight for independence, no matter the cost, even if it meant losing everything. When Nkrumah returned to Ghana, the air felt heavy. British rule controlled everything, the schools, the laws, even the dreams of the people. But Nkrumah walked through the streets with purpose. People gathered around him, curious about the man who spoke with so much hope. His voice was calm, but powerful. "We deserve to decide our own future," he said. And the crowd believed him. He joined politics, but not the kind that hid behind big offices. Kwame went into villages, shook hands with farmers, sat with fishermen, and listened to women selling food by dusty roads. "What do you want for your children?" he asked. The answer was always the same: freedom. Soon, his movement grew fast. Rallies filled with thousands. Songs of independence echoed across towns. But with support came danger. The colonial government feared him. They arrested him, locked him away behind cold iron bars. Many thought that would end his dream. But prison only made him stronger. People marched outside, shouting his name. Women carried signs. Men refused to give up. Children drew his face on the ground with sticks. The whole nation rose as one voice. And then something historic happened. An election was held, and even from inside prison, Kwame Nkrumah won. Ghana had chosen their leader. When he finally stepped out of the prison gates, the crowd roared like thunder. Nkrumah lifted his fist and whispered, "This is just the beginning." The fight for independence grew hotter. Every day felt like a storm. Nkrumah traveled from village to village, lifting tired hearts. He spoke with simple words that touched everyone. "We are one people, one nation, one destiny." His message spread like fire. But freedom was not easy. The British government pushed back with strict rules and heavy pressure. Some leaders doubted him. Others feared change. There were nights when Nkrumah sat alone, wondering if the cost was too high. But then he would remember the farmers with cracked hands, the children who studied under dim lanterns, the mothers who prayed for a better tomorrow. He could not stop. Marches filled the streets. Drums beat loudly in every region. Young men carried placards. Women sang songs of courage. Even the old men who once kept silent now stood tall. The movement was no longer just Nkrumah's dream, it was Ghana's heartbeat. Then came the moment the world could not ignore. After years of struggle, negotiations, and pressure, change finally arrived. On a warm dawn, people stood packed together, waiting for news. Nkrumah stepped out before the crowd and announced, "Ghana will be free." Tears rolled down faces. Strangers hugged. Some fell to their knees. For the first time in generations, Ghanaians felt the weight lifting. Nkrumah looked at the sky and whispered, "Africa is rising." But he knew the greatest battle was still ahead, building a nation worthy of the sacrifice. On the day Ghana finally became independent, the world watched. Flags waved high, drums shook the ground, and people danced from morning till night. At the center of it all stood Kwame Nkrumah, calm, proud, and emotional. As he spoke, his voice cracked slightly. "At long last, the battle has ended," he said. The crowd exploded in cheers. Ghana was the first sub-Saharan African country to break free. It felt like a door opening for the whole continent. But freedom came with heavy responsibility. Roads needed building. Schools needed opening. Hospitals were few. Ghana was free, but it needed shape. Nkrumah worked day and night, barely sleeping. He met with engineers, teachers, and farmers. "We are building not just a country," he said, "but a future." He invited leaders from other African nations, hoping they would join together. "Africa must stand as one," he often said. His dream was bigger than Ghana. He wanted unity, strength, and a continent that could never again be controlled by outsiders. But not everyone agreed. Some thought his vision was too large. Others felt he was moving too fast. Pressure grew around him. Foreign powers watched closely. Some feared a strong, united Africa. Still, Nkrumah pushed forward. He built factories, funded education, and encouraged pride in African identity. Children began to dream new dreams. And every night, before resting, he looked at a map of Africa and whispered, "We rise together, or not at all." As Ghana grew, Nkrumah's dream for a united Africa grew even louder. He traveled across countries, meeting presidents, kings, and freedom fighters. Everywhere he went, crowds welcomed him like a hero. His message was simple: if Africa stands together, no one can break us. Many people believed him. Young leaders saw him as a guide. But others felt threatened by his ideas. Back home, life was becoming tough. Some projects were expensive. Some leaders wanted more power. Rumors started to spread. Foreign countries who disliked Nkrumah's vision whispered into the ears of his enemies. Slowly, shadows formed around him. But Nkrumah didn't stop. He launched new schools, libraries, and research centers. He encouraged Ghanaians to trust their own abilities. "We are capable," he said. "We are strong." Children repeated his words in classrooms. Workers painted them on walls. Still, the pressure kept rising. The economy struggled. Some people blamed him. Others defended him. Ghana felt divided, and Nkrumah felt the weight on his shoulders. One night, while walking alone through the quiet halls of the presidential palace, he paused. He touched the wall gently and whispered, "Everything I do is for my people." His voice was tired, but his heart still burned with hope. He planned a trip outside the country to push his dream for African unity once more. But he did not know that while he was gone, powerful forces were preparing a move that would change his life forever. Kwame Nkrumah left Ghana for a peace mission, hoping to help end a war in another African country. He believed that if one African nation suffered, all suffered. As his plane lifted into the sky, he looked down at the land he loved. "Take care of my people," he whispered softly. But back home, trouble was already moving like a quiet storm. Some army leaders and politicians, influenced by foreign powers, planned to take control. They feared Nkrumah's dream of a united Africa. They feared his growing influence. And they feared the power of a people who believed in him. So while he was away, they made their move. Early one morning, radios across Ghana crackled with shocking news: a coup had taken place. Soldiers had taken over the government. Nkrumah was removed from power. People froze in the streets. Some cried. Some shouted. Others simply stared at the sky, stunned. Nkrumah heard the news while traveling. His heart felt heavy, like a stone sinking into deep water. He wanted to go home, but he knew it was dangerous. The new government had shut the doors behind him. He sat alone in a quiet room, staring at his hands. "Is this how it ends?" he whispered. But then he shook his head slowly. No. My dream is bigger than a chair of power. Even though he could not return, he refused to give up. Africa, he believed, still needed unity. Still needed hope. Nkrumah was given asylum in Guinea, where President Sékou Touré welcomed him like a brother. When Nkrumah arrived, tired and heartbroken, Touré stood before him and said, "Ghana may have rejected you, but Africa still needs you." Those words lit a small spark inside him. Guinea gave him a home, but it wasn't the same as Ghana. He missed the warm streets, the children waving, the songs of independence, the smell of cocoa farms after rain. Sometimes, he would sit by a window for hours, watching people walk by and wondering how his own people were living without him. Did they forget me? He often wondered. But even in exile, Nkrumah kept walking. He wrote books, speeches, and plans for African unity. He sent letters to leaders across the continent. Some listened. Some ignored him. But his message stayed strong: Africa must stand as one. He followed Ghana's struggles in newspapers. He read about the problems the nation faced, problems he once worked day and night to solve. He wished he could return, not as a ruler, but as a helper. He carried a small Ghana flag everywhere he lived. Sometimes at night, he placed it beside his bed and said, "One day, they will understand why I fought so hard." Though his life had changed forever, his heart stayed loyal. Ghana was still home. And Africa was still his dream. Years passed, and Nkrumah's voice continued to echo across Africa. Students studied his books. Young leaders repeated his ideas. Even people who once doubted him began to see the truth in his warnings that Africa needed unity to be strong. But while his influence grew, his health began to fail. Nkrumah traveled for medical treatment, hoping to recover. Doctors tried their best, but his body was tired from years of stress, pressure, and endless work. Still, even from a hospital bed, he asked for news about Africa. He asked about Ghana. He asked about unity. His mind never stopped fighting. One afternoon, he looked out of a hospital window. The sky was cloudy, but a single beam of sunlight broke through. He smiled softly. "My work is not in vain," he whispered. "One day, Africa will rise." His voice was weak, but his spirit was strong. When the news of his passing spread in 1972, the world paused. Across Africa, people cried. In Ghana, many felt deep regret. They remembered his courage, his sacrifices, and his dream. Some said quietly, "We pushed him away too soon." Across villages and cities, people gathered to honor him. Schools held prayers. Old men told stories. Drums beat slowly in mourning. Even those who once disliked him now admitted the truth: Nkrumah had given everything for his people, even his life. After his death, something powerful began to happen. Ghanaians started to see Nkrumah differently. They read his books again. They watched old recordings of his speeches. They listened to the dreams he had once shared, dreams many had ignored. Slowly, a new understanding filled the land. People realized how hard he had fought, not for fame, not for wealth, but for their future. They remembered how he built schools, opened hospitals, and encouraged pride in African identity. They remembered the way he stood before the world and said, "Ghana is free forever." They remembered his courage. Young people who were not even born during his time began to admire him. His ideas about African unity started to take root again. Leaders around the continent repeated his words on stages: "Africa must unite." Suddenly, the man who had once been pushed away became a hero again. In Ghana, statues of Nkrumah were built. His birthday became a national holiday. Streets were named after him. Children learned his story in schoolbooks. And families told their kids, "He fought for you long before you were born." Though he was gone, his spirit walked in Ghana's markets, schools, and streets. People felt proud again. And many whispered the same words: "Nkrumah never dies." His dream was alive once more, growing quietly across Africa like rising sunlight. Today, Kwame Nkrumah's story is told across the world. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and a dream larger than one man. When people speak his name, they remember a leader who dared to believe that Africa could stand tall. They remember a man who looked at his people and saw greatness, even when others only saw weakness. In schools, children watch old videos of him lifting his fist and declaring freedom. In homes, elders tell stories of the night Ghana became independent and how the crowd cheered until the stars shook. In universities, students study his vision for African unity. His ideas refuse to fade. Nkrumah once said, "The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa." Today, those words still inspire movement across the continent. Leaders continue to speak about working together. Young people begin to dream of a united Africa again. His life had victories and painful losses. He knew love from his people, and he knew betrayal. He saw freedom, and he lived exile. Yet through it all, he never stopped believing in Africa. When people pass by his statue in Accra, many pause for a moment. Some smile. Some bow their heads. Some whisper a simple thank you. Kwame Nkrumah may be gone, but his dream still beats like a drum across the continent. Africa remembers him. Ghana remembers him. And the world remembers the man who tried to unite Africa.